Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spark AI podcast. I am here, TJ Lewis, with Aaron Van Ruler. What's up, Aaron?
Hey TJ, how's it going?
Doing great, doing great. So I'm excited about this. This is, I guess, officially, this is our pilot episode, first episode. Is this pre episode one, pilot, the prequel? I don't know what you want to call it, but this is the first official episode that we are doing here. And so I think the goal of today's episode is really to kind of give a background on who we are a little bit, what we're up to, and why it matters, right? So I'm curious, just to jump in, what we've got sort of some ideas around what we want to cover in these. I'm curious what your thoughts are, your goals, and what you're excited about with this podcast.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been talking a lot. We've been working on a product for the last year-ish at least, and a product in AI in the accounting space. And so uh, we think a lot about how do these two things come together. And so sort of product, AI, and accounting. And we talk a lot about, how does this save people time? How does this level up their expertise? How does this help them be able to accomplish more and do more, serve their clients better? All of these things, and AI has been the topic for the last year, and so kind of pulling all these pieces together and seeing how various products can really help you know, be a catalyst to accounting firms through the use of AI and through other machine learning type things. So yeah, lots to cover. It's something we talk about all day, almost every day, and so want to just bring the conversation together in like kind of a public space. How about you? What are you feeling, thinking, excited about in
Yeah,
this topic?
absolutely. I mean, I think you hit a lot of the big ones. I mean, I think this is still, I don't know, I guess in the whole scheme of things that, we've been involved in this for over a year now, working with AI. And I think the thing that's really exciting to me is being able to, a lot of my job is really getting to know our users and really understand them. And I think getting that firsthand experience on what our applications are, right? What are the practical applications of this technology within the, specifically within the accounting space? But then also, what are some of the fears and anxieties and things like that we're having to overcome, and the challenges that people are facing with implementation? And so, really getting to hear a lot of that firsthand, I think we can, take what we're hearing from people and share that out. And then also, we're just keeping our ear to the ground as it relates to relevant news and other things like that. And certainly in the interest of just being curious, I think we are curious to get feedback from folks on what they're doing and what they're experiencing, and also to learn from the other products and vendors in the space on what they're doing and the capabilities that they're seeing and how they're using AI to implement new features and functionality within those products. So to your point, I think we've got a wide array of things that we can dive into, and I'm really excited as we've been talking about some of the things that are coming up or potential for future episodes. I'm really excited about a lot of what we can talk about. And I'd say the biggest thing for me is just that interaction. So as folks are listening, we really want this to be a catalyst for conversation. I think that's something that there's a lot of different thought leaders in the space around AI. And one of my passions, I guess you could say, is just driving that community conversation. And so being able to have that quick turnaround of thoughts and ideas and be able to sort of churn all those things together and figure out how we can take that information and action on it. So I would say
Yeah.
that's just as much, a part of this as anything.
Yeah. You just mentioned community. Let's take a quick step back and tell me, kind of explain to me, to others, sort of what are you working on right now in terms of specifically community, and how did you get there, in this sort of product space and working with AI plus accounting?
Yeah, good question. So I guess my passion for community comes from my background. I came in through RootWorks. So currently working with RightWorks. RootWorks was acquired back 2020-ish. I had been with RootWorks for about 5 years prior to that. So I've been in the space and working with RootWorks and those members for about 10 years now. And so that I have seen and continue to see the value of people working together towards a common goal, and not being out on an island all by yourself, right? And I think that's one of the things that's super easy to become isolated and sort of become focused on only the problems that you have, not realizing that there are so many lifeboats out there that can support you, right? And so my goal is one of the things that I'm passionate about is bringing people together, and AI is it's a tremendous opportunity for us as an industry, and I think there is an opportunity for us to all help each other and not be like, I'm going to figure this out on my own, you know. And so yeah, so to your point, we are actively creating a community geared 100% towards AI adoption, not just Spark. We'll talk more about Spark here in a minute, our product, but not just Spark, right? So we want to understand the various use cases, products that are in the space. We want to help with implementation and adoption in your firms. And so we have created a community. You can get there by going to Spark, and then there's a little community tab. You can join the community. We've got a whole set of resources geared around implementation. So we've got sample AI policies, some worksheets geared at understanding the various use cases within your firm across different functional groups. And really, all of those things are geared towards just helping you understand within your firm what it looks like to implement AI and to be able to help set some guardrails for that. So yeah, there's a lot that we're doing there, and I'm really excited about getting that up off the ground and getting people started. As with any community, that's sort of we're in first gear right now, kind of cranking on the flywheel, trying to get some engagement. And right in the middle of tax season is the best time to start anything like that, I think. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Hey, totally. Hey, everybody, I know you're not doing much. What do you think about coming over here and
yeah, come hang
get
out.
this community going? Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, a little bit, part of the reason why we think the community is so important is you just mentioned the life rafts, is that people, really, busy season might actually be the perfect time to start implementing some AI things in terms of like helping you accomplish all the work that you need to get done, not just in a shorter time, but like more effectively and more efficiently. And so while it might seem like, oh, a huge hurdle to adopt a new thing during the middle of busy season, it might actually be the perfect time to realize and to experience, all that AI can at least help you get started with, get to the 80% of what, any project that you might be working on. So, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, we've noticed some of our top users are tax managers, right? The people that are in the trenches right now doing work. And I was speaking with somebody the other day, and I think, there's sort of two trains of thought right now, right? It could be, well, now's a really good time for them to be using it, and for us to learn and understand how they're using it. And the sort of fear-based, anxiety-based side of that could be more around like, well, I don't really want to barge in on them right now. They're really in the middle of trying to get their work done. I don't, the opportunistic side for me, having, so I spent a fair bit of time in operations and things like that. The opportunistic side for me is like, wow, what if we could just spend 15 minutes with that person and really understand what they're using it for and spread that to the rest of my team. And, if they are saving tons of time, and they're really using it heavily, maybe that's something that can be a huge cost savings for us, where we can really churn work out faster. If
Mhm.
nothing else, like I find it has upped my level of just enjoyment for work. I think it's just a new tool, a new way of thinking about things, and it's interesting to me when you stumble across a new use case, or you stumble across something where you're like, wow, that task in the past has taken me so long, or it's taken me, for me, it's often just about like getting to context quicker. It's like, what am I even trying to do here? And
Mhm.
like, I context switch constantly throughout the day, Aaron. I don't know. I know
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of are in the same boat. And so it's like, sometimes it's just jarring my brain loose and saying, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. I need to get into a different mindset. And it just sort of
Yeah.
spits out an outline, and okay, now I know what to do. I can go.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get kind of practical there. I was just thinking, tell me about like a specific thing. So we mentioned time savings, but I also think about like mental energy of like having to get over this hump of like, I just need to get clarity on something. And so it might not be, we're talking a lot about maybe just generative AI here, where you ask a question and get kind of a response. So if you can, I don't know if you're willing to share, what's the last thing that you prompted using Spark or another tool to help you get over that hump of like just mental capacity?
I'll ask you the same question here in a second.
Yep.
My most recent was, hey, Spark, I need an outline for this podcast based on the based on the project plan that we put together. Right? It was like,
Yeah.
I need a pilot episode outline. and not that I hadn't thought about it or whatever, but I was like, this morning, it's so we're recording this on a Wednesday morning. This morning, I had tons of other things on my brain. And for me, it was exactly what I just described. It was sort of jarring me loose of the other things that I had on my mind to go, okay, I need to get into the frame of mind of what are we trying to accomplish with the podcast? What do we need to convey in this first episode? And just that simple prompt was like, okay, now we can go. Now I can
Yep.
go. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, Aaron. Yeah, I'm sure you've used it today, right? Hopefully, maybe.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, different tool. I use a tool called Perplexity just, an hour ago or whatever. I was trying to figure out something with code and I had like an idea of like how it works or whatever, but I just wanted some clarity about how to use a specific function and expression, I guess you could call it. And, um, I wanted to understand how do you explain this concept or whatever. And so I asked Perplexity, tell me about how to use this and like what are use cases for it. It's like code that I'd written and I was just kind of checking to see if it was doing the thing the way that I expected it to do. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
So Aaron, I love that you just mentioned Perplexity because I think that's one of the things that, obviously it'd be easy for us to be like Spark, Spark, Spark. That's our product. Use Spark. And that's not at all what we want to do. We want to illuminate and highlight all of the various tools that are used across the board. And so Perplexity is a new one that, or it's been around for a bit, but Perplexity has its own use cases and pros and cons. And so I would love to hear from you, just as it relates to Perplexity, why Perplexity versus Spark in your decision this morning.
Yeah. One thing I really like about Perplexity is that it offers like usually three or four links or articles, tied to specifically where it pulled that answer from. We've talked about this like as a feature within Spark itself, but it's like basically Perplexity is replacing Google for me. And so it's a little bit less of like when I don't really need like a long form, thoughtful, sort of more creative answer and more of like a search result, I guess is where Perplexity kind of really shines. It's like shorter search result type thing with a few links. I never barely ever click out to links, I guess. But just like seeing like I usually like look at which domains it pulled from and then like that kind of determines my confidence level and like whether I think this is probably right or wrong or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting. So we've mentioned Spark a few times. I think
Yeah,
we
sure.
haven't really gone full bore into what Spark is or why we keep saying that word, right? So, I did mention that our goal with this podcast is that we are not Spark centric, although we have a lot of opinions and we have a lot of thoughts, and Spark is sort of guiding a lot of our work. But we are going to highlight and talk about news that comes from Perplexity and from ChatGPT features and things like that, as it relates to those kinds of things. But so, Aaron, give me a quick overview on sort of Spark. Where did it come from? Why does it exist? And what are we doing with that?
Yeah, great. So Spark was a sort of a project that we started a year ago, like actually during tax season.
Mm-hmm.
We, knew that a lot of people were trying AI, but we knew that there were a lot of like hesitations. And so we, in sort of a controlled environment, just put a box in front of people, connected to OpenAI, API, and just like to see if people were interested in using this and starting to integrate it in their day to day life. And there was definitely some interest there. And so then we released like a full on product, I guess, or web app that anybody could use. And it really came from two kind of specific use cases. The first one is sort of around the idea of like AI. So Spark 2, like the tagline we would say is ChatGPT purpose built for accountants. And so it's that experience that you've maybe seen where there's a text box, you type in something, you ask the question, and it gives you some sort of response like generated by, an AI large language model. And so uh, there's two kind of use cases that we have in mind of like, who might be interested in this. And the idea of purpose built for accountants is sort of like always our, foundation, I guess you could say. So the first use case is I know that AI is a thing. I'm curious about it, but I'm also a little nervous about ChatGPT, privacy, security, what happens when I type something in this box or whatever. And so we wanted to create a place specifically for accountants to learn and explore AI tools. And by the way that we've built it, nothing is getting submitted from any prompt that you make into like the large language model. We've heard these like stories of, the famous one was Samsung a year ago, where some company confidential information got leaked because some questions got asked or whatever. So we wanted to create a spot that felt safe and secure for people to try something new without being too overwhelmed by the security of that. So, and I'll let you share kind of that second use case of how we've since then started to see people using Spark, kind of, people that are more, I would say, power users.
Yeah, for sure. So 100%, Aaron. I think there is this like this help me learn and explore is all about what do I do with this, right? This is new. I
Hmm.
don't fully understand it, but I think once you get to the point where and that's sort of an ongoing, right? Things are changing and shifting daily, weekly, for sure, as
Yeah.
it relates to
Yeah.
this technology, and so that's kind of an ongoing thing. But as our users get more comfortable and they get more fluent with it, it really does become about the second use case, which you just alluded to, which is more about expanding my expertise, right? And whether that's as an individual or as a firm, sort of collectively. And the idea is that, you mentioned this large language model. There is so much information gathered in this large language model. And, we've had access to the internet for years, right? And Google and search, you mentioned sort of replace Perplexity having replaced Google. Access to information has not been a problem, but it's sort of distilling that information into something that's useful and usable, that is a skill in and of itself, right? So I mean, we've all, for 20 plus years now, we've gone to Google to ask it a question, and then we have to go through, who knows how many different links to find what you're actually looking for. The great thing about generative AI is that it gives you the answer first, and then you can go verify and validate. But in doing
Hmm.
that, you have access more quickly to expertise, quote unquote, that you may not have had access to otherwise, right? And so, or it would have taken you longer to get there, and it might have been a really frustrating experience. And so, as an individual, now here's an example. So I find myself in Excel all the time. I am not an Excel wizard, nor do I really want to be an Excel wizard, but I need to be competent. I need to be functionally literate, at times, to be able to analyze data and do the things that I need to do. Um, the way that this has helped me expand my expertise in that area is I often don't even know what kind of analysis I'm trying to perform. I just know I've got some data in this column and I need to do something with it in order to transform it or compare it to this data in another sheet, another column. And I just basically write that in a prompt. Usually it's like, hey, I got this data with this field doing this, performing this use case in my thing, and I needed to do this. And then it comes back and it's like, oh, well, what you're trying to do is, right, I had one the other day. I was trying to unpivot a table. I didn't even think about like, oh yeah, of course, that was a
Unpivot.
right. So it
Unpivot
told
it.
me how to
Yeah.
unpivot a table. It was like, here's the process you go through. So I am expanding my expertise as an Excel wizard by leveraging what this tool can offer, right? So that's just an example that I have. But and there are academic studies that are coming out now that we've had a little bit of time with this, where you're between your low performers and your top performers are still sort of growing and excelling at this study was done through MIT, Harvard, and anyway, long story short, high performers are still growing, but the low performers, so they grew at 17%. The high performers did. The low performers grew at like 46%. Don't quote me on those numbers because it's been a minute since I've actually looked at it, but the ballpark is right. And so those low performers are basically accelerating their learning and their abilities and their performance much quicker than those that
Hmm.
are already high performers and high achievers. So that's just an indication of at the individual level what it can allow you to do. The other thing we've heard, and Aaron, this is a quote I know you and I share affinity for, but as a firm, a smaller firm, we work with a lot of smaller firms, right? 5, 10, 15 people. And as a firm, we recently heard a firm owner say, oh, this is my ability to compete with the larger regional firms in my area, right? Where
Hmm.
I don't have that specific expertise around that specific use case for what they needed to do. But by leveraging, in this case, it was Spark. By leveraging Spark, they were able to ask questions about the scenario that came in from their client in order to solve the client's problem, where otherwise they might have had to refer them on, or that client just wouldn't have come to them. So I think
Yep.
that's an interesting use case, and it's really fun to see people find success in those ways.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I was just thinking about 3 or 4 examples of something I've been trying to figure out, and I'm like, oh, This is kind of a little bit, and we can kind of start to wrap up here, but because of the tools that are available and the newness of it, sometimes the habit part of like, oh, I can actually go here to help me, get to that 80% or whatever, like get started on a problem that I've been struggling with. So that expand my expertise. You were mentioning Excel. I've used it a bunch to ask code questions, database questions. I have a server question that I like haven't been able to quite figure out. And I'm like, oh, that's another use. And it's just like, you have to remind yourself that the tool is available to help you uh, get started on a potential solution. And then that, like you mentioned, the validate phase, which is like, this looks right, but I'm not going to just like copy and paste this into something and like assume it's going to be the right answer. Like on a tax question or like a code question, there's the expert personal opinion of like, does this actually do the thing that I think it's going to do or whatever. So there's
Right.
always that second step there.
Yep. And the thing you mentioned there is habit, and it is so. I mean, I mentioned Google a minute ago. You've mentioned Google. That's so ingrained. Like that's the first place you go. That we do. There is an unlearning process that we have to go through, where it's like, okay, this is a new capability, new functionality that works similarly and for similar purposes, but in a different way entirely, and has much more capabilities that you can start layering on top of. And it really is grooving new habits, and it's not without pain in some
Yeah.
ways, where it's like
Yeah.
you're gonna have to keep it in front of yourself, keep it in front of your staff. You have to keep reminding people. And for us and our team, we've tried to we have a weekly team meeting, and we've tried to like bring that to the forefront and just intentionally say, we're going to carve out 5 minutes right now to talk about this. How are you
Mhm.
all using it this week? What success stories do you have? Is there something that you've used it for where you thought that it should work and it didn't? Maybe we can troubleshoot and share some potential solutions for that. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Awesome.
So in wrapping up this first episode, first of all, thanks for being with us. Second of all, we definitely, I mentioned at the top, and we'll continue to mention this. This is about feedback for us. So or rather, feedback is important to us. So we want to hear, what are some things that you are struggling with? What are some challenges you're facing? How can we help? What are some things that we can cover, and people that we can reach out to help solve for some of these things? And so I would say that's sort of, as we go forward, the biggest thing for us is that we want to share what we're hearing. We want to share what we're learning from, within ourselves, but also from the community at large. And so I think there's a number of ways that we plan on doing that. And I hope you stick around with us as we keep moving here. So Aaron, thanks. It was a good time.
Yeah.
And, we'll see you
Thank you, TJ.
soon.
Sounds good. See ya.
All right, bye.